Hi, and welcome to the Adapt and Kudosity webinar, Building a Winning API Product Strategy. I'm Tori Starkey, and I'll be your host today. For today's session, we'll kick off with a keynote presentation by Shane Hill, Principal Analyst for Adapt Research and Advisory. Shane helps executives make crucial change decisions enabled by tech. And today, he'll be exploring how businesses are capturing operational as well as customer value via their API strategies. After the keynote, Shane will facilitate a fireside chat with two subject matter experts, Tony Becker and Jason Edward. Tony Becker is a Senior Product Manager here at Kudosity with over 10 years experience in software development. Tony focuses on creating impactful products through continuous experimentation with agile teams, and his specialties include web application development, developer documentation, as well as project planning. Joining Tony today is Jason Edward. Jason's the visionary entrepreneur behind leading cloud-based salon software, Simple Salon. Simple Salon offers a user-friendly solution for managing appointments, client details, business performance, and it's suitable for businesses of all sizes. So I'm really excited to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Shane Hill, and to hand it over. So over to you, Shane.
Thanks so much, Tori, and thanks everyone for joining us today to discuss and debate how we can develop a winning API product strategy. And before I dive into some of our insights, a quick note about Adapt. Since 2011, Adapt has been connecting, informing, and equipping executives in Australia and New Zealand to help them thrive, both now and into the future. We speak with over 3,000 business technology executives in this region annually to help them to sustain their business advantage through digital change. And moving to my next slide, let's have a look now at how selected priorities have changed for Australian CIOs. And amongst others, we can certainly see the focus on costs has risen sharply, and it's now the number 3 priority for CIOs this year, up from around number 11 just 2 years ago. And in many ways, our priorities are to modernize and consolidate the tech stack by taking a more data-driven approach to driving effectiveness in our roles and indeed to support that initiative to drive cost optimization. However, when it comes to delighting and retaining customers, CIO priorities have fallen sharply for this over recent years. And it may seem as though the greater attention that we're devoting towards modernization, costs, and indeed effectiveness may well be coming at the expense of keeping things simple and pertinent to our customers. And turning to my next slide, and what we'll look at now is how those priorities then translate into value. On the left, we can see operational value, and on the right, we're looking at customer value. Now, when I talk about operational value, I'm referring to things like simplification, automation, and integration. By driving greater efficiencies and ease, we can then support the business to grow without comparable increases in the cost base. And we can see that 40% of organizations are now capturing operational value, and recent growth in this area suggests that some of our API-driven modernization initiatives are starting to pay off. But with only 27% of organizations able to capture customer value, either in the form of new revenues, services adoption, or indeed personalization-driven retention, what can we do to help our customer success teams to demonstrate and deliver on that value? And as we go through, I'm wondering whether an effective API strategy can help us to knit together our technology estates in a more straightforward and efficient manner, and to enable us to deliver to customers in a simpler and more seamless way. Now, coming into my next slide, and what we're looking at here is the impact of digital on our organizational revenues, or for those organizations in the public and non-market sector, on services adoption. And we've certainly positive news from our digital channels generally, with some opportunities emerging for greater cross-selling. In fact, a third of our revenues are coming from our digital sources, and that has grown 20% over the past 2 years. And in some ways, that growth has come from better, more efficient customer portals, and particularly those that have been delivered with a suitable set of well-managed APIs. But cross-selling offers some opportunities because at its best, cross-selling can help us to meet more of our customers' needs and wants, but our ability to meet those needs has fallen 41% since 2022. So what these insights seem to be saying to me is that there's more to do to make product and service recommendations more targeted when we're endeavoring to cross-sell to our customers. And if that's true, what role can the API strategy play when helping us to connect the dots for our customers? And clicking into my next slide, and we're going deeper into those trends now. Because given what we found in the last slide, that a third of our revenues are coming from digital, it's perhaps intriguing to see that maybe around half of our orders are captured online, be they transactions, services, claims, or otherwise engaging with the business. And while those digital orders grew into 2023, it then fell back into 2024. But all of this means that only around 2/3 of those orders are then able to be fulfilled entirely online. So it begs the question, where is some of this value leakage occurring? Is there a disconnect perhaps in how some of our orders are then fulfilled digitally to the extent that they can be? And is there a way perhaps that we can apply our APIs to enable more of this fulfillment to happen online? And where our physical channels remain central to service, what role can these APIs play when it comes to giving our frontline experts the information that they need to serve their customer well, with relevance and knowledge from those prior experiences that they've had before they've come into store? And that leads me then on to my next slide and some of our key experience barriers. And we're looking here first at some of the challenges afflicting the employee experience. And these insights are coming from our most recent surveys with chief digital officers back in 2023. Certainly of those barriers, we can see that increasing digital burnout rose sharply to become the #1 employee experience barrier, up from I think it was number 3, number 4 in 2022. And certainly we're needing our frontline and engineering teams to deliver faster just to be able to keep pace with demand. And I see some questions are starting to come through as well, so thank you for that. And keep them coming through as we go through certainly this keynote and into our fireside discussion as well with Tony and Jason. Now, add into that challenge of digital burnout the delays in decisions and problems in changing how value is delivered. And these insights seem to suggest to me a need to reshape our operating models to then enable and support our people to deliver what our customers want and expect in 2024. And we're certainly seeing some questions coming through around SLAs and benchmarks for APIs and how we can monetize our APIs. So some things to discuss as we go through. Now, I have already spoken a little bit about how operating model changes can then support our employees to deliver at pace, at scale, and for what our customers need. And I'll get to those in a moment. But before I do, my next slide will reveal some of the key customer experience barriers that our customer success teams are facing. And certainly the top 3 barriers remain: inconsistencies in data, experience, all within a tightening privacy landscape, which together are making it harder for our customer success teams to deliver value to customers, all while having a good experience in their own roles. But is there a way perhaps for our APIs to join up some of these data silos and to bridge the gaps between our portals, our channels, and indeed across our omni-channel estates? And together, could those changes help us to have a clearer and more unified picture of the customer so that we can understand and deliver on those expectations? So perhaps some of those questions we can explore as we go through later into today's session. And my last few slides are going to speak to some of our progress, our operating model, and our value measures. And what we're seeing on this slide are quite a few things that speak to our progress in connecting and modernizing the organization. And I'll draw your attention to just two of these lines on the screen. So firstly, the infrastructure modernized line, and then also how well we've done in terms of connecting applications via APIs. So certainly when it comes to modernizing infrastructure, it confirms the progress I talked about earlier when I was talking about operational value. We've made reasonable strides to make these foundational platforms more modern and fit for purpose, and in that way helped us pay down some of the effort and the toil facing our engineering teams when it comes to building the API strategy. However, when it comes to knitting together key apps and portals, there seems to be more to do. Because what we're seeing here is that API connectivity between those apps and those portals had fallen sharply from around 53% of them back in June 2023 to only around 35% of those applications connected in this way here in 2024. And in some ways, this seems like it's a product of how quickly our SaaS and homegrown applications are expanding. And then the question becomes really, how can we effectively manage that sprawl, that expansion, and to better orchestrate those applications, both for our customers, but also our employees as they go about delivering in their roles. And so it then becomes a question of how can we manage that effectively at scale with pace, efficiently, all within the context of having fewer resources available to us with which to meet these aims. And that need to succeed at scale then brings me to this next slide about the operating model. And I did say I'd come to this a little bit later when I was talking about employee experience. Because when we build an effective product strategy for our APIs, we can give thought to some of these areas on the screen, making cross-functional teams more effective, supporting employees through the value creation journey. Because certainly when we shift some of these needs further left in development and certainly in our organizational designs, we can harness closer ties between our product, data, and engineering teams to deliver more effective services to our end customers as well. And building on those ties can help us to embed extensible, reusable APIs, and in this way start to really build and evolve an open, agile, and modular operating model, which all can then tie back to new ways of working, better flow for our engineers, and value for our customers at scale. And these organizational connections can then lead into a simpler, more streamlined path to value. But as less than a third of organizations are effective in any of these areas, we may want to explore some of the main barriers that we're facing when it comes to evolving the operating model through an effective API strategy. And as I come to my penultimate slide, we can see the propensity to spend in some of the key enabling technologies that we're going to need if we're to build out on this strategy. And when I look at this slide, we're looking at CIOs on the left and CDOs on the right. They're intense to spend in some of these areas. Integration, operating model, and indeed modernization all come through quite strongly in the intents to spend for CIOs in 2024, and many of those are in their top 25 for CIOs this year. Yet the Chief Digital Officer's intents to spend are markedly different. So for example, while application integration has similar prioritization for both personas, API management particularly sits at number 4 for CIOs, but only at number 46 on the list of investments that CDOs are making in the 12 months ahead. And although iPaaS attracts similar levels of prioritization for both personas, architecture more generally is prioritized far more highly by CIOs, than chief digital officers. Stepping back, and I'm wondering if with more aligned spend between these personas, we can help to achieve some of our intents for a more integrated, simplified estate, and indeed a better app experience for our customers and indeed our colleagues as well. And some questions around innovation, driving CX and customer value coming through in the questions as well. And as I come to my last slide, and before I get into our fireside chat with Tony and Jason, I conclude my remarks with what we truly value from our strategic partners in 2024. And what Adapt has seen from its surveys this year is that Australian executives want partners that can deliver on their commitments at optimized cost with flex and a shared vision at the core of the partnership. And this focus then connects with some of the priorities I shared right at the start of this keynote, the need to drive modernization effectively, indeed, with a cost-conscious eye to the future. And as we come into our fireside discussion, that commitment to simplify and bolster our API estates can lead to greater ease and value within our operational environments. And we've also got, towards the end of today's session, an opportunity for an open Q&A. And if you've got any further questions for Tony or Jason as we go through this discussion, pop them into the chat. And so with that, and to explore these themes a little bit more, I'm joined at the virtual fireside by Kudosity Senior Product Manager Tony Becker and Simple Salon founder Jason Edward. Tony, Jason, welcome to the virtual fireside.
Hi, awesome to be here. Awesome to be here.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here. Good morning to everybody.
And welcome. Thank you. And so, Tony, starting with you. So could you tell the team a little bit more about how you help customers with their API product strategy?
Yeah, sure. So the challenge, the wonderful sort of the scary part and the challenge and the most amazing thing about the technology today is kind of like anything is possible. We've got cloud infrastructure galore. You've got AIs building things for you just with a couple of words of suggestion. But really, like what the heart of our strategy is, starting with the customer and understanding what they need before we go out and build a landscape of things. So understanding their goals, small goals, large goals, big goals, understanding the objectives that they're trying to achieve. So everything that we do, we want to start with the customer, because honestly, you can build kind of anything. You can build any kind of integration and things like that. And we want to figure out and start with something that's workable with them. Our APIs are very, very simple. They can integrate basically with any humongous stack or even anything, something very small. So we have even the opportunity might turn out to be some sort of small send that they've set up using some sort of automation platform, or they actually want some sort of full scale enterprise integration. So it's really the scale of like from one side to the other is possible. So it's working with them to understand their goals, what they're trying to drive out, and first and foremost, figuring out those things before you begin on this kind of journey of technology.
Yeah, really having that destination in mind before we begin with the build. So Tony, thanks for that introduction and view on the topic at hand. And Jason, could you tell us a little bit more about Simple Salon and how perhaps the API strategy fuels your customers' experiences?
Thanks, Shane. Yeah, so Simple Salon was birthed by the need within the market for a really simplistic solution that allowed, because we exist in, primarily in the hair and beauty industry, where the predominant mechanism for getting software within their salon was having these big computers with CD-ROMs delivered to them every single year. And they would do updates and these are hairdressers who don't really understand technology. That's not what their focus is. Their focus is largely on, either cutting hair or doing beauty therapies. And technology is probably the furthest removed from that. So as part of that, we were the pioneers to introducing cloud software into the salon and the hair and beauty industry, taking away all of the overheads that were involved for them. So no more CD-ROMs, no more updates that they had to install yearly, and just gave them the opportunity to have really simplistic views on things that they needed. But at the same time, we also developed an API internally for ourselves to allow our customers who did have those technology backgrounds to actually extend our product to do what they wanted to do, meaning that their business would be able to succeed and customize the experience for their clients in a better way.
Really simplifying things for your end customers so that they could really shine in their role, but actually giving others choice in your ecosystem as well. So thanks for sharing that, Jason. And what really struck me, I think, about Simple Salon is that ability to drive scalability, or indeed, Tony, how you're helping customers like Jason to achieve some of that scalability. So Jason, and then Tony, could you expand a little bit more on some of these thoughts?
Yeah, so Simple Salon allows our clients to just like part of the integration with APIs and stuff. It allows our onboarding to be a lot smoother. So part of our integration with Kudosity, for example, is we allow our clients to on their onboarding process be able to select the number of credits that they would like, as part of their signups, and it means that those things are allocated. Our clients don't actually have to go and register because all of that sort of stuff is done behind the scenes for them. And they get to just use the credits to send reminders and do marketing and all of that sort of stuff at a click of a button. And by doing that, it's also allowed us to go at scale because while we're an Australian-based company, we have the reach for sending messages anywhere in the world. And having that API means that we can actually onboard customers anywhere in the world with that same experience.
Fabulous. And Tony, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think kind of what Jason's saying, there's kind of two key things to kind of draw out from that, from my perspective. There's scalability of like the tech, for strategies, for API strategy, there's scalability of the technology, like, the amount of throughput, the amount of pods you need to spin up, support the amount. But then there's also kind of a key scalability in the business, being able to have APIs that can help a business like Jason scale. And that's what we've done as well. We have a select kind of a unique set of partner APIs that partners can use to scale their business, add more customers, add more clients, set up payment methods, and do all those kinds of things. So we've helped not just sort of scale in terms of the volume of messages sent and all the DLRs and things like that coming back and forth for reporting, and the technological wise, but we've also helped scale the business through the power of unlocking some of key APIs for them, which they use on a daily basis.
Absolutely, unlocking the value, which is what all of this is about. Getting the technicalities right, that's important. Getting the business need understood, that's important. But at the end of the day, it's about outcome. And these journeys, Tony, can be complicated. And so when we spoke earlier, we discussed the idea of how we can really drive shared innovation in each of our roadmaps, be it Kudosity and Simple Salon or Kudosity and another customer. Tony, could you perhaps talk to how you're working with customers about how you're helping them to achieve simpler integration with APIs?
Yeah, sure. So this year and for the coming years, Kudosity is very focused on sort of an API strategy. We have a team for that. We've got myself as a product manager that's dedicated to that. So we're really excited to start working on and building out that strategy. The number one thing that we want to do is, again, as I keep on routing this back to the most important thing is to understand customers, what they need, what they want. The landscape is vast. Of technology is vast. The landscape is accessible, not just through AI generating code samples and things like that for you and building integrations, but also outsourcing and things like that as well to help scale yourselves up to build these things. So fundamentally, we're working with customers to understand their needs. We're working on building intuitive, simple endpoints that we can easily integrate with, and we also take we take a very minimalistic kind of approach to APIs, which works really effectively. A lot of competitors have high volume APIs that require lots of sends back and forth, makes it complicated to send things back and forth, deepens the integration that is required to send those things back and forth, So we really have a very simple, straightforward transactional API that you can use to set up in a couple of seconds to get going. So fundamentally, our strategy is, number one, keep it simple. Number two, focus on customers and what they're trying to solve, because the landscape is vast and confusing and you can overbuild something very easily. And three, working on endpoints to make it as simple as possible for customers to do. Those are the kind of the three tenets that we're going to be focused on for the next little while to help customers.
Yeah, and as I was listening, I noticed that you were answering quite directly one of the questions that had come through in the chat. One of the questions that had come through was, what are some of the most important things to keep in mind when designing a user-friendly and scalable API? And you really spoke to that simplicity, those endpoints, and actually just thinking about the outcome that you're trying to deliver as well. So thanks for sharing that. And it brings us to value, doesn't it? Tony, and then I'll come to you, Jason. When we're building the business case for these kinds of changes, because they're not cheap, how do we articulate the value of a modern API strategy back to the business, or indeed to our customers as well?
So for us, there's three key tenets that we sort of think of when we're thinking about strategy and APIs. There's number one, and I'm just going to bang on, sorry to repeat this over and over throughout this entire thing, but simplicity is the core tenet, scalability, and then there's another aspect of monetization, which is our three key ones are simplicity, scalability, and monetization. So for simplicity, it's absolutely key. Having an API that can work with any language, any programming language out there, have an API that can work with any kind of, has intuitive endpoints that can be integrated into something very, 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 very small, like some sort of some Zapier application, all the way up to some like large CRM, like Salesforce and things like that, to be able to work with it. So the simplicity is what helps get us to be into those different places. If you have a complex API, it's just going to be very, very challenging for customers and for yourselves to integrate you and to make you kind of into all those different places. Another kind of key one that I was mentioning is the scalability. So Black Friday and Mother's Day and things like that are huge. So there's a scalability for transactions that we can automatically scale up to for being in the cloud, because it's important that we're able to handle those traffic volumes for our customers on those key days. And those are when things are like there's millions, hundreds of millions of messages going back and forth in a period of a couple of hours. So being able to scale the technology up to support that level of thing. And then the other one, which we've sort of touched on sort of briefly, and not everyone needs this, like a monetization strategy for an API. We've got customers that are charities. We've got customers that are government contract customers that are sending messages for COVID alerts and for fire alerts and things like that. There's no monetization strategy really for them, but for those other people like Jason and other teams and stuff like that in other companies, you can monetize our APIs. You can build on these things. We have margin support for different types of sends for different types of customers. We can change the values. There's different unique contracts that we've got with some of the providers like Vodafone and things like that. So we can create a situation in which customers doing sends can monetize that and be incentivized by making money from that. So again, I'll wrap up really quickly. So we're looking at the key API strategy is simplicity, scalability, and monetization.
Yeah. And that's answering directly one of the questions that came through in the chat as well. How can we monetize our API? And so, Jason, same question to you. When you think about value, when you think about building the business case, what matters to you?
Well, for us, it's very similar to that, is the fact that we are trying to get value to our customers and actually help them concentrate on what they love doing best. And so keeping everything simple from our end and actually, speaking to what Tony has produced and having, from our development standpoint, being able to rapidly develop the stuff that we need without having to be bogged down in the mire of the API, and having a simple API means that we can actually deliver that value to our end customers. And then by providing our interfaces so that all they have to do is just type a simple text message for whatever they want and push a button, and it means that they can send it en masse to their clients and improve their client experience is fantastic for us. So, and for us, it very much touch on the points that Tony made. We like to do things starting with keeping it really, really simple and allowing our customers to be able to do those things in really simple fashion, but then also allowing them to scale. So as they grow, we can grow with them. And it doesn't, and it allows them, from their perspective, our customers can also, because to them, the reminders that they send, the marketing messages that they send, those are all directly correlating to the monetization within their organization and their business, which basically builds value for them. And so that's at the core of what we're trying to do, is to help them grow and be sustainable and successful businesses. And in the process, we're actually delivering a service that they can actually utilize to make sure that, in simplistic and loose terms, it means bums on seats for them.
Yeah. Better utilization of the chair, as it were, and the simpler overhead kind of things that you can make it for your customers, the more time they can spend delighting their customers. And so in a way, you're helping to share in their success. And Jason, I'll stay with you. So we talked a little bit before today about, the first use case you design, because, these journeys, as we sort of touched on earlier, can be complicated to sort of navigate and actually get from the idea to the value you're trying to deliver. As you thought about that first use case, what worked for you, and how are you looking to scale that?
So for us, we take a lot of care in our system design to ensure that the information, that they're trying to acquire. So when they're making an appointment, there's usually a customer either on the phone or standing directly in front of them. So we make sure that the flow works in line with what would happen conversationally, and at the same time, we try to reduce the number of clicks that are required for the end user to make sure that they have that really, really ease of use. And from a Kudosity point of view, we also at the same time send the confirmation message. So if they're on the phone, they can, with a click of a button, send that confirmation message directly to the end customer to receive that confirmation that their booking has been made, which means that their customer actually feels like they've gone through the process really quickly with them on the phone because of the interface that we've built. But at the same time, they've also received a confirmation message to go, hey, we've booked your appointment and you're good to go. So we'll see you in a couple of days. So that's been at the core of what we've built and the core of what we've designed. And so the ease of use and the simplicity of use is basically where it stands for us.
Yeah, and I'm conscious that we want to save some time for the Q&A, so we've got about 10 minutes to go now as well. And what I was really hearing there, Jason, is that what you've done here is to help that hair and beauty provider really enrich the omni-channel experience. So if I go online and I do a booking and then I come in store, I'm having roughly the same experience regardless of the channel, and it's just easy. It's seamless. I can get in, get what I need done, and off to the next thing as well. And so the question that I have for you before we go out to the open Q&A, do you see the API strategy in this way fitting with data strategies, so that if we can get better, more reliable data from our customers, we can make better decisions in the salon?
Absolutely. So, and that's the thing, and having that information readily available, and that information on the customer means that we can provide that experience, and ultimately providing that experience in this case for the hair and beauty industry's customers means that they become more of a returning customer, which adds value to that actual business. Not knowing that context would mean that, and not having that API integration would mean that we would have to try and source that information in another way, which would make that experience a whole lot worse for the end user. So having that, and it means that when the customer comes into the hair salon to have their service, or even if they're booking online, they have a nice seamless experience, and they know that their booking's been booked, and they can confidently go into the salon knowing that that's what they're going to be receiving, is at a professional level.
Yeah, just making everything seamless, and at the same time helping a customer to drive through on their strategy and actually, grow revenue, grow services adoption, build that stickiness as well through better data, better integration. Yep. Kinds of things. So I'm going to open it out now to the floor for some Q&A. And initially, there's already a couple of questions in the chat, and I might answer the first one if I may. So the first question that came through in the chat that we haven't already answered, what performance benchmarks or SLA should we be looking at for our APIs? And Tony and Jason, you might have a view on this as well, but certainly from Adapt's perspective, when we looked at this in our research, some of the SLAs that we want as engineers particularly is that time to act, time to acknowledge, to then act and implement some of the changes that our customers require. The ability to access insights easily, effectively, all facilitated by the API estate, and being able to have trust in some of those insights as well, but also how long it is taking to integrate different applications across our estates is one of the key measures as well. There's plenty of others, which we've published in a prior report, but how easily are our APIs facilitating innovation, flow for engineers, but also standardization across our development pipelines? There's some of the benchmarks and SLAs that we should be looking at for our APIs. But Tony and Jason, I don't know if you've got a view on that question as well.
We have pretty serious SLAs for a lot of our stuff, because if you think about it, like with Black Friday, as well as Mother's Day and stuff like that, some of our businesses, all their business is done on that day, and they're absolutely 100% dependent on us to be able to send these things out. So we have a pretty serious trust with them, and then a serious, robust set of infrastructure and SLAs in place to ensure that their messages go through. So it's a pretty serious business for us to be trustworthy and responsible, and handling things in a very, very quick fashion, considering some of the companies make all their money on a single day. So it's very important, basically.
Yeah. Uptime's so important on days like that. You can't
right, all nines. Yes, uptime is extremely important.
and by extension, because we're delivering that same thing, so the companies are doing their marketing on those particular days, and they're relying on those messages to go to their end customers on whatever promotions that they're having for Black Friday, and whether it just be products off the shelf or services. So they're going with those sorts of things to ensure that they're getting the bookings that are coming through within their hair salon. So we rely on those SLAs being the service times being, trustworthy and reliable, so that we can send, because if not, we will end up getting calls and messages coming about, campaigns being sent and not reaching their customers.
And then how those SLAs then translate back to our partners as well. And it comes back to what CIOs and Chief Information Security Officers want, partners that can deliver on their commitments and optimizes cost. With flex, as needs change, because, at these high marketing events or throughout the year as we have our peaks and troughs, being able to react and being agile to deal with demand as it rises, and so that the customer doesn't have a poor experience. They still want a seamless experience, whether there's 10 people or 10,000 people on our apps as well. And then another question that's come through while we've been talking is really around what are some of the most innovative ways to improve customer experience and indeed customer value using APIs that you've seen. Tony or Jason, do you have a thought here?
I'll jump in on this one, Tony. But like from our perspective, the customer experience for us is most of the time our customers actually want certain things, within which they reach out to us about, and having an API that is simplistic and that we can take the lead on and making it really simple so that they can access those particular features enhances their experience. And if we can enhance their experience and take the overhead and the workload of their thinking, it means that they can then deliver that experience on to their customers as well. So I think that one of the most innovative ways that we do that is by integrating using APIs for our customers to deliver the things that they want.
Yeah, it's really important to understand those expectations to be able then to deliver it. And I guess, in some ways, there might be an opportunity to adopt chatbots more effectively to answer some of those more routine questions that our customers have from our knowledge base or what have you, as long as we're taking care of the hallucinations that sometimes occur in that, forum. So the right guardrails, the right empowerment for our engineering teams to then support that customer success as well. And a little bit of a question without notice to you, Tony, because we've got a couple of minutes. Somewhat without notice, but somewhat not. So before today, we talked about context-based messaging. So our customers are in so many different channels based on their preferences, and there's opt-outs to manage, there's messaging to manage, either via WhatsApp or Viber or SMS. What role do you think that API gateways can play when actually managing some of that messaging effectively, including some of the opt-out things?
I think, well, that actually kind of ties back into the other question on what innovative things are we going to be doing. There's a rich set of information with these channels that can happen on read ratios, on looks, on responses and things like that. All that can be aggregated and gone through using an AI to give you the customer who's creating new messages, to creating new campaigns, to give them insights under which the best conditions, the best messaging, the best type of thing to reach their customers the best. And so that's really an innovative thing that we can be using, that we're going to be using and exploring later this year. But that is also a way to kind of aggregate some of the omni-channel data coming back from WhatsApp, Viber, RCS, and all those things, and helping customers focus better on their customers using that set of information. And those are all, again, APIs pulling information back and forth and consolidating it to better help you send messages through us to connect with customers better.
Fantastic. Well, it looks like as though we're at time. And lots of questions answered as we go through. Was there any final remark that you wanted to leave with our attendees, Tony or Jason?
Apologies. It's incredibly simple to get started with us. You can get started in under 2 minutes and be sending SMSs instantaneously, like I've said throughout this. It's a very simple API. Go to our developer portal. There's a getting started guide there. You can get started in under 2 minutes sending messages and get on your journey, understanding on how to build.
Yeah, and from our side, it's really easy. You can visit our website if you wanted to get started with a Salon software. But but we've enjoyed being able to do the partnership with Kudosity and be able to help our customers send their messages and stuff like that with our integration, which has been great.
Fabulous. And Tori, I'll hand back to you for the wrap up.
Thank you. So as we wrap up, firstly, I actually wanted to extend a huge thank you to you, Shane, as well as Tony and Jason as well for sharing your expertise and insights with us. And thank you to everyone else who joined us today as well, particularly those that participated and asked some questions. Quick reminder, if you haven't already, please be sure to visit kudosity.com, where you can access today's session, our API guide, as well as a range of additional resources and access our upcoming events and webinars as well. So thank you once again. Have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next time.
See you all.
Thanks. Bye.